Okay, so good evening, everyone. Dedicating this year to Ruth Chaitowitz, the mom of Eli Chaitowitz, and we wish him and his family a long life. And his mom, Ruth, was a very uh, quiet person, very friendly, down-to-earth lady who had very good midot. One of those midot Eli told me was she was very honest with workmen and people that did work. She paid people immediately. And as they say in Hebrew, the word is yashar, which means straight down the line. No, never argued with people who did work for her. She always paid immediately and basically based on honesty. That's how we should all try deal honestly with people. And that's how we should all strive to behave. Um, the avot, just one thing about the avot, um, they are the examples of how they set the tone for how human behavioral patterns and how we should behave. And one interesting thing is that coming back to the current parashiyot about Joseph and the brothers and the Egyptian exile, um, when after the brothers threw Joseph in the pit, and they told Yaakov that he was killed by a wild animal, they weren't speaking truthfully. And these people were we can't imagine the level they were on. And that wasn't honest, which is an interesting point, why they didn't tell their father the truth. Um, so it's an interesting question, which we won't have time to go into now. But there were obviously deeper reasons for the one that they disliked Joseph so much and they felt guilty. But it wasn't the true story. They weren't honest with their father. But okay, that's a question or a discussion point for people. Anyway,
Good, actually, Kevin. Good. Eli, I've known you for many years, I think like 2 decades. I can't believe how the time has flown. And you can see over the last few years from the Zoom shirim, people are going grey and balder, and time's flying. So I wanted to wish you long life. I didn't have the privilege to know your mother, but I can tell you something with your knowledge of Torah. I mean, I know you learned under Rabbi Goldfeld. I think you even have your smicha, and you could certainly give a share far better than I can. But I hope the significance of this is that we really care about you and wish you an aliyah for your mom's neshama. So we'll get
amen.
started. We're starting a new Mishnah, which is fortuitous because the word Mishnah and neshama share the same Hebrew letters, and may it be an elevation for your mom's neshama before we start the Gemara.
Amen.
So what I'm going to do is share the screen, and Arthur, are you able to read with Eitan, or it's not the most conducive Mishnah that you can read at the moment? Yes or no?
I have to find my glasses first. Give me a minute. I'll look
Yeah,
for my
because
glasses. I can, but
this has to be read
a lot of
properly.
noise in the background. There's music. There's a
Okay,
lot of noise
so let's
the
give you the
music and
next
all that stuff.
Mishnah. Let's give you the next Mishnah. It's not a problem. I think has Gavin read lately a Mishnah, or was it Lance? Because Kevin gives a
I think
shit.
it was Gavin. I think it was Gavin.
Okay.
Yeah, it might have been.
So
Yeah,
Lance,
but
would you do the honors? I'm going to share the screen.
Sure.
Just give me 1 second.
thanks, Kevin.
Okay, Lance, whenever you're ready. Just take your
We're
time
starting
with
at the
it
top.
properly from the top, yeah.
Okay. The Mishnah now presents another case in which applying the Hazamah penalty poses a problem. If they said, we testify about this man that he owes his fellow man 1,000 zuz, the stipulation that he repay in between now and 30 days. Okay. However, the defendant says between now and 10 years. The accused admits that he actually owes the stated amount, but maintains that the terms of the debt be repaid over 10 years rather than 30 days, that the witnesses claim. The witnesses were then found to be Zomamim. Since the defendant admits owing the money, the damages which the Zomamim would have to have caused him had their testimony been accepted is not the entire 1,000 zuz, but only the difference between paying 1,000 zuz within 30 days and paying them after 10 years. Sure, that needs explanation. Therefore, we evaluate how much a person would give to have 1,000 zuz in his possession. The difference between having to repay them within 30 days and having to repay them within 10 years, i.e., how much would he pay for the privilege of having a loan of 1,000 zuz available to him for all that extra time? The witnesses paid this amount to the accused.
Okay, so I'm going to take a complicated Mishnah and I'm going to make it obviously as simple as possible. Okay, so the first thing that you've got to understand from the Mishnah is that he's not denying the debt. The Eidim Zomamim, the conspiring and plotting witnesses, have said that this man owes the 1,000 zuz. And then there was a second set of witnesses and says that actually when this agreement was signed, according to the plotting witnesses, they couldn't have been there to sign the agreement or have witnessed the verbal agreement simply because the second set of witnesses said on that day and time and at that place where you accused the defendant of not paying his debt, this is in fact, you were with us in a completely different province. So you weren't there. You weren't there. So generally we would say, we're learning exceptional cases regarding Eidim Zomamim. We would say, look, you're accusing a person of 1,000 rand debt, and therefore the Eidim Zomamim in court being plotting witnesses must pay the 1,000 rand debt, or 1,000 zuz here, for example. But this case is a little bit different because the defendant is not actually denying the debt at all. He's saying, I don't have to pay it in 30 days. I have 10 years to pay the debt. That's the particular arrangement. And now by you bringing your false testimony, I've got to sweat and come up with 1,000 zuz immediately. So we want to know in this case, since he's not denying the debt, then what have the Eidim Zomamim actually cost this defendant? They haven't cost him 1,000 zuz because he admits to owing 1,000 zuz. They've cost him what the value of that 1,000 zuz is within different payment terms. Let me explain to you what I'm saying. When you've got 10 years to pay off a debt compared to 30 days to pay off a debt, you have to pay a greater premium in order to have more time to pay off money that you owe. In other words, there's interest that accrues. It's almost like you're paying a house with a 20-year bond compared to a 10-year bond. Is that the less pressure you're under to make your monthly mortgage payments, and the lower those mortgage payments are, the higher the level of interest you'll pay on the eventual total sum. So the privilege of what he has paid in order to get the debt to be paid off longer is the amount that the Eidim Zomamim pay, because this is what they've cost him in essence, because he's not denying the debt. That's the first thing that you've got to bear in mind. Now, there's also another aspect that you've got to bear in mind, and that clearly is the fact that he denies that they were the actual witnesses to this transaction. Okay, he said, yes, there were witnesses. They did hear about the fact that I owed 1,000 zuz. But the reason why he denies that they were witnesses to the transaction is if he were to admit that they were witnesses, his admission that they were there would exempt them from them paying anything as a reciprocal penalty. In other words, if he said, yes, you were the witnesses, however, and you did sign on the star on the document that I owed 1,000 zuz, but the payment term was 10 years, not 30 days, they wouldn't be given a reciprocal penalty. Because it's only when a second set of witnesses said you couldn't have signed that star, that contract, because you weren't there at the time, and he's concurring the defendant at the same fact. So it's obviously a separate set of witnesses that were part of the document that he signed to the lender as the borrower. Now, you could say, well, how would such an oversight occur? So either they're witnesses that could hear the verbal testimony about their agreement, or it was written in a star in a contract. However, the due date was not stipulated. In other words, for some reason, they never put down the due date of repayment. So in that particular case, this is where the discretion lies. So all the Adam Zimmerman would have to pay is the privilege amount difference that you would have to ease off on a debt by paying it over 10 years as opposed to 30 days. Does everybody understand that? Does anybody not understand that so far?
So, Damon, yesterday we discussed that, okay,
It was a
firstly, we
different
know that
issue.
you don't
It was
pay,
a completely different case.
but in principle, we all know that you don't pay interest, okay? Also, we know that you said yesterday that up until relatively modern times, there wasn't inflation. Okay, so when the difference between 3 months or 10 years, it wouldn't have been any inflation. So 1,000 zuz now is the same as 1,000 zuz in 10 years' time.
Okay, let me address your two questions. Lance is asking two very, very good questions. Okay, I'd like to answer the second question first. So, Lance, even though you're right, that one of the factors that would be taken into equation now is the fact that a 20-year debt on a home mortgage, the inflationary index would be taken into account, and therefore, if you look at paying a property cash compared to 20 years, inflation is one of the factors taken into account. And that does affect the fact that you're paying so much more than the property is worth. Lance is 100% accurate. However, Lance, on a primary basis, although that's the factor, what you've done here, which has occurred even when there's no inflation, is you've cost the person their ability to use that money at its base level value for 10 years. For 10 years. Meaning, if I lend you R1,000,000 and you're going to pay me back in 30 days, then that I will charge you a very low interest, providing you've got collateral, or you've got land to sign over, whatever the case may be, and I'm secure in lending it to you because you might need it because there's some Italian guys down the road that are going to introduce you to a couple of tools they have to rearrange your head. And since you're very motivated to pay them, it's worthwhile for you to pay a certain stipulated fee so that you don't have debt collectors rearranging your anatomy. However, I don't mind doing that for 30 days at a very low fee because that R1,000,000 for 30 days isn't going to accrue me much interest. So there's a difference between interest and inflation. Interest is how much could I have earned with that R1,000,000 over 10 years. Now we're going to get to your second point now about not charging a due interest. I'm going to bring this up. There's a commentary with the Ritva and there is a discussion, etc. But in principle is that it's not necessary if you can't lend that money to another due at interest, then certainly that R1,000,000, we'll deal with your interest issue now, I could use to invest in property or buy goods and resell those goods or have a tenant or do something with that capital for 10 years to generate me more income. In 30 days, I wouldn't be that concerned. So if you are putting me in an invidious position financially where I'm cash flow struck, and it puts me in jeopardy, or I can't generate funds because that's the cash flow to run a business and to pay staff and to advertise or to invest in property and get tenants or whatever venture you want to use that R1,000,000 for, or to lend to non-Jews. At the end of the day, you have to pay me for that privilege because I'm not earning as a result, even if you take inflation out of it completely. Does that make sense, Lance? Well, in terms of charging a due interest, I'll deal with that separately. But do you understand the principle of what I'm saying here? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, Lance's question regarding interest is excellent. So the Torah does prohibit charging another due interest, but this has no bearing on the payment that the Zomimim occur. Why? The Eidim Zomimim incur this as a penalty because this is what they wished to cost the innocent defendant by saying he owes it in 30 days. So the interest is taken out of the equation because the real worth of money, Lance, is the amount that the damage that the Eidim Zomimim wish to inflict on the accused. Because now, if he suddenly needs to come up with if he suddenly needs to come up with 1,000 zuz, he's going to have to borrow the money from non-Jewish sources, and that's going to cost him a small fortune in order to get the money in 30 days. So as a penalty to the Eidim Zomimim, this is reciprocally given because this is what they wish to cost the innocent defendant. So it's no longer a case in the Gemara about an interest. It's a penalty on the damage they wish to inflict on the accused. Because now he would have to borrow money from non-Jewish sources at an exorbitant rate to pay it within 30 days. Do you get what I'm saying? So that's the general consensus of the Gemara. It's a penalty to the Eidim Zomimim because this is what they wish to damage the defendant with. It no longer is about interest. It's about what they chose to damage him with. That's the Gemara. Yeah?
Okay, so you'd also discussed the time period that the Zomimim have got to pay back that loan. I don't think they should be given the luxury of paying it off between 30 days.
They don't have the luxury. This has nothing to do.
They must pay 30 days. They should pay it off then because they wanted to make him suffer, so they should suffer.
They do. They pay within 30 days. And Lance is right on the money again. You should be playing the lotto in Vegas because you're right on the money again. So exactly, they're made to pay a debt. You've got a minimum of 30 days. You can't make somebody pay a debt before 30 days. So they have 30 days. Obviously, if they can't come up with the money, that just remember here, the defendant, he's only gaining here. He never actually lost the money. So the courts might come to a system if they don't have any other money, but it would be 30 days. I mean, if you can't extract anything, they would maybe give 90 days and force the person to sell their property, the Eidim Zomimim. But he would get his money. You're absolutely right. There's no tenure. They would make sure he liquidates each of the Eidim Zomimim as quickly as possible. And together they would cover the debt of 1,000 zuz. You're totally correct. So this is, so the time period is the drama that caused to the accused. But the Ritva has a different method of evaluation. So in other words, the Rambam in Eidos, you've got Hidias, you've got different sorts of Gemaras in the 20 in chapter 21 verse 2. The Rambam basically says that it's a reciprocal penalty because they wished the accused to pay that amount and put him under pressure. But it's not the 1,000 zuz because it's agreed to the debt. It's what it would have cost him of the difference between a loan period of 30 days versus 10 years. But the Ritva has a different method of evaluation because Lance's question was the first question that I had that came to mind. So an assessment is made about how much the lender would be willing to deduct from the principal owed to him to have the debt repaid within 30 days instead of 10 years. So this avoids any problem of rebus and an assessment based on the prohibited payment of interest. So what I'm saying is, Lance, if a Jew comes to me and they need to borrow R1,000,000, then I say to them, look, I actually don't want to be without R1,000,000 for 10 years because I could generate that and make 10 million rand. So therefore, if you pay me within 30 days, I'm prepared to take maybe another 50 grand off and lose 50 grand because I don't want you to lose your house and I care about you. But I just need the money. I can't afford to have it. So in other words, how much would I discount of an interest-free loan to get my money back quick? That's the way the Redford works it. Because I don't want to lose my money for 10 years being repaid at no interest. Do you get it? So it works on the discount that the lender would give the borrower for the privilege of having his money back within 30 days instead of 10 years. Do you understand that, guys? Lance, do you understand?
How is that not interest?
It's not interest because he's not charging any interest on 1,000 zuz. What he's saying is, and that's perfectly acceptable, I lend 1,000 zuz. I'm not charging anything more than 1,000 zuz. I'm giving you a discount of maybe 50 or 100 zuz to pay me back in 30 days instead of waiting 10 years for my money to be paid back. I'm actually not even requiring my full money back. That's not interest.
So it's like giving tzedakah then.
It's more than that. It's giving a discount for early settlement. There's no interest charged on the 1,000 zuz.
That's what I'm saying. You're giving him, you're saying, here is 1,000 rand you can borrow. If you give it back within 1 month, only give me back 900 rand.
Yeah.
So that 100 rand is like tzedakah then.
Yeah, but it's tzedakah that takes a lot of drama off the lender's mind also. It's a tzedakah.
Yeah, it's like reverse.
I promise you.
It's like reverse. It's like the opposite of interest.
It's the opposite of interest. So the Redford's answer makes sense, actually. And the Rambam says, no, we don't work it like that. We work it that the minute it becomes a reciprocal penalty, it's no longer judged as a point of interest. It's a punitive damage or a fine that's placed upon the Eidim Zomimim by putting this accused under stress of having to come up with 1,000 zuz within 30 days, even though he owes it within 10 years. And the value that the Eidim Zomimim would have to pay is the amount of interest. If you borrowed it, for example, from a non-Jew, of the privilege to have it for 10 years, that money as opposed to 30 days. And that's what's put against the Eidim Zomimim. Do you get what I'm saying? It's exactly what's put against them.
So the penalty is based on the Goyish interest rate.
Yeah, because it can't be on the Jewish interest rate. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think those are excellent questions. Does anybody else have any questions? And guys, you got to admit, Lance's questions were pertinent here. And that's what I like. If there's sometimes I'll say to you guys, I don't have time for questions because it just slows the flow. But this is the very essence of a question that is important, because the first thing you should ask is, what are you talking about? We don't charge interest. There's no rebus. So excellent.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah. Kev, that was a good pun. That was a very, very good pun. Okay, so it all makes sense, guys, yes or no?
Guys.
Kevin, you have to go
Yes.
at what time? How long do we have, my dear friend?
No, for the full, no, at the end of the session, it's fine.
All right, so let's go on.
No, it's the full lesson, it's fine.
We've got
Not
20
sure.
minutes. We've got 15 minutes left. It's fine.
All right. So the Gemara introduces a ruling by Rav Yehuda, which is related to the Mishnah's law, as explained. And Rav Yehuda now is quoting Shmuel. He says in the name of Shmuel, if one lends his fellow man a sum of money for 10 years, the sabbatical year, which is known as the Shemitah, cancels the loan. Okay? So every 7th year is declared a sabbatical year by the Torah. We had it in 2015 and we had it in 2022. So this year now is basically known in informal Talmudic language, in Talmudic parlance, as Shavuos. Basically means the 7th. And it's commonly referred to as Shemitah by most people today, not Shavuos. Now, most of the laws of the sabbatical year relate to agricultural activity in the land of Israel. And I remember when I went to go and see Kevin, how careful he was about separating things in plastic bags. Very, very well done, Kevin, just as a matter of interest. I was very impressed. Just to get back to the Gemara, so the Torah also provides for the cancellation of all loans at the close of the 7th year. Now, where's that found? It's in Devarim in Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 3. Okay? And that part of the law is in effect even in the diaspora. So whether you're in South Africa or whether you're in Babylon or whatever the case may be, I don't know if it applies today, but certainly at the time of the Mishna and Gemara it did apply, that out of the land of Israel or in, all debts were cancelled at the close of the 7th year. And the source again is Devarim chapter 15, verse 3. So, obviously, you can predict where the question is coming next, guys, I hope. Where do you think the question is coming next?
About loans, about people not protecting their loan that they gave out to someone.
Listen, I'm trying to
The Schmidt year.
listen, I can just give you over the Gemara, but what I'm wanting you to guys to do here is think. Look what we set up here. We said, listen, there's a difference between what you'd pay to have the money on the 3rd and the 10th, 30 days versus paying it over 10 years. Okay? Now, this issue of Shemitah is coming up. So clearly it's going to have some sort of an effect. Okay? So if you have a look, the meeting's going to end in 10 minutes. If you have a look, Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, we've got a bit of a problem here. What's the problem? And even now, if you have a look, so let me just read that pasuk for you. I'm not going to read the Hebrew because my Hebrew is not great. Says, and this is the matter of the relinquishment, referring to Shemitah. Let every creditor relinquish the claim which he claims against his fellow. He may not press his fellow for payment, for a year of relinquishment has been proclaimed unto Hashem. So, guys, this is the pasuk conjunction which bars a creditor from collecting a loan which has been cancelled by the passage of the Shemitah year, the sabbatical year. So, obviously, Rav Yehuda is going to ask on Shmuel, and even though now in the 7th year we cannot apply to him the injunction, he may not press the borrower for payment, since the debt is in any case not due until 10 years have passed. We still apply the command stated at the beginning of that verse to relinquish all debts, and Shemitah cancels the debts. And the reason is that ultimately the loan will be subject to the injunction he may not press. So what it's saying is that, in very simple English, although the cancellation of debts is taught in the same verse as the injunction not to press for payment, the injunction is not limited to the 7th year. Rather, guys, the verse is understood to mean that one may not press the borrower whenever the debt comes due, because the passage of Shemitah has already cancelled it. So it can be applied to a debt which has not yet been due in the Shemitah year, according to Rashi. So what we are saying is here, look, you've got 30 days to pay it. The Shemitah hasn't come. It's not going to affect you. You have to pay the debt. If you say you've got 10 years to pay it, and the Shemitah comes in the 7th year, because you've got that injunction of he shall not press, obviously combined with relinquishment of all debts and the mentioning of the Shemitah, it basically has a period that intersects, and that's the Shemitah year, which means all debts during the Shemitah year and after the Shemitah year that were incurred before the Shemitah took place is relinquished, because it's passed through, and therefore you cannot collect from the Edom Zomimim the difference of what would have been charged this accused between what the 30 days was worth of having that money borrowed compared to the luxury of paying it over 10 years. So then the problem with the Gemara has is as follows. And that problem is actually brought by Rav Kahana. So Rav Kahana is challenging Rav Yehuda's ruling on Shmuel, and he said, look, we've got a problem because our Mishnah says exactly the opposite. It says the whole amount that the Eidim Zomamim pays, not the 1,000, because the accused agrees to the 1,000. It's the luxury of having to borrow the money for 10 years and the privilege you pay for that luxury instead of 30 days. That's what the Eidim Zomamim pay. But if you say that the Shemitah that happens in the 7-year cuts right through it, and therefore what happens to both during the Shemitah and afterward, all debts are cancelled, then the Eidim Zomamim should pay what, guys? They should pay the full 1,000, because it means that the accused wouldn't pay anything back to the lender as the borrower. Because as the debtor, he doesn't pay back to the creditor. Why? Because the Shemitah has cancelled that out. Because it
Shouldn't you say 7 years' time? So shouldn't it still be partially discounted? Because he's still getting it. He has to wait 7 years to be cancelled out, as opposed to 10 years, which I understand.
No. So you're not hearing what I'm saying. I'm going to say it again. Excellent. Because Gavin's mentioning of this means he hasn't understood it, which means I haven't explained it properly. So Gavin, what I'm saying to you is fathers. If Rav Yehuda is saying, according to Shmuel, that if the Shemitah year occurs in the 7th year, both during the Shemitah year and afterward, all debts are relinquished. They're relinquished, which means the borrower that borrowed the 1,000 doesn't have to pay anything, because the Shemitah intersected at the 7th year, and everything that was due both on the 7th and subsequent years are not owed. They're not owed to the lender. And therefore, basically the accused wouldn't have had to pay anything. If the Eidim Zomamim said the accused has to pay it in 30 days, he would have had to pay nothing because the Shemitah year intersected, and now has to pay 1,000 zuz. So now Rav Kahana is basically saying our Mishnah is proving Rav Yehuda's opinion on Shmuel wrong, and therefore our Mishnah should say that the Eidim Zomamim need to owe the accused 1,000 zuz. Because if you say it intersects, the accused wouldn't pay anything, and now by being asked to pay within 30 days, the Shemitah hasn't cancelled it out. He owes 1,000 zuz, and therefore we should make the Eidim Zomamim pay 1,000 zuz. And because we don't, it proves that the intersection of the 7th year doesn't cancel the debt. That's Rav Kahana's arguments against Rav Yehuda's quoting of Shmuel. Now, it doesn't mean Shmuel said it. It means Rav Yehuda quoting Shmuel said it. Do you understand the problem? Otherwise, the Eidim would owe 1,000 zuz, because the accused, the accused would either pay nothing if it's in 10 years, because the Shemitah year would intersect and cancel debts from 7 year onwards, according to Rav Yehuda and Shmuel, or he'd have to pay within 30 days because Shemitah hasn't taken place, the 1,000 zuz. So we would make the Eidim Zomamim pay 1,000 zuz. And because we don't, and this Mishnah says you only pay the difference for the luxury of what that money is worth, actually, by having a relief of debt to pay it back over 10 years. And that's what the Eidim Zomamim pay. Rav Kahana says Rav Yehuda's take on Shmuel is wrong.
So that's fine then.
Pardon?
No, that's fine. Because I was going to say that you aren't valuing it. I did hear what you said. You aren't valuing it. You're valuing it according to what he becomes liable for, which is the full 1,000. I understand you clearly, but you're not valuing it the way you did previously in the previous example, based on the value of what the lender is prepared to pay for
correct.
it.
And
that's you're not valuing it. You're valuing it on a different system now. That was the problem I was having.
Correct. And Rav Kahana's got the same problem as you, and that's why he's against Rav Yehuda's opinion of Rav Shmuel.
So that was really what I was saying. So it's not I didn't understand you. I didn't understand how he could be saying that. It didn't make sense.
So you agree with Rav Kahana that he doesn't agree with Rav Yehuda's opinion on Shmuel. Lance, what were you going to say? Excellent.
So that's why I said I'm okay. It answered my question. Thank you.
Excellent. Now you understand. Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah,
do
now I
follow.
understand.
I do follow in principle that they're now liable for 1,000 because it gets cut off in the Shemitah year. However, a person lending for 10 years is either a very generous person or an ignoramus, because you know for sure that the Shemitah year is going to intersect and it's going to cancel the debt, which means he can't get his money back. But there is a mechanism which they would have to put into that
Prosper.
agreement.
There's a prosper.
Prosper, yes.
Yeah,
You give
The
it to
document, the
the
star.
you
Yeah.
give it to the bed
Yeah,
thing.
so these issues are going to come. And also, if you've got collateral which is not pressing, you've got the guy's asset. You're not pushing him to pay. You've got his payment. So, yes, these are issues that are going to come up, Lance. Correct.
So
Okay.
you'd have to look at the whole
We are.
contract.
We are.
Yeah.
But I'm saying
Before you
excellent,
can-
excellent prediction. These are issues that are going to come up.
So that's
I hope you enjoyed this year.
so Damon, it's also to the people won't stop lending money.
Correct.
If they're gonna lose it in the
Examples there.
Shemitah year, then it's
The only reason
like
that,
they're losing out. And they're
correct.
not,
Absolutely. It was for the sake of the poor that the prosper came into play. Excellent, Kevin. Arth, any last words? All right, guys, I hope I gave it over okay.
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. Thank you.
All right,
Yeah.
cheers,
Thank
guys.
you.
I'll see you on Sunday.
100%.
Bye.